Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Purpose Pursuer webinar. I just got to take a second and really thank those of you who are watching this, whether live or recorded, because there's something special about you. And Annie, Nicole, Brandon, and I, we know this. We know that there's something special about the person who senses that there's more for them to do and is actively seeking that more. We love those people. Guys, can I just grab you for a second? And I know this is spontaneous and spur of the moment. You don't have to answer. But my question to you practitioners is, hi, Seth. Hi, Brandon. Is what do you guys love? Annie, I'd like to start with you. Let's go, Annie, Nicole, Seth, Brandon. Why do you guys love the person who, as I was saying just now, is actively seeking that something more? They intuitively understand there's something more and they're actively seeking. Annie, let's start with you. Why do you love those people?
I really adore people that want more because to me, not wanting more is a sign of resignation. Maybe that's
Mm.
from, my frame of reference from how I was raised, but to me, if you're just paddling through life and you're just taking what was thrown at you, you're not doing what God created you to do. He created you to grow. And so when I am encountered with people who are just flatlining it,
Mm.
it's not my place to judge, but I will truly roll my eyes, throw my hands up, like, I will talk to you later. Thank you so much. Because to me, I'm so attracted and so want to help people who want to do more. Those are the people that I want to work with. And if I'm having to drag someone through life who doesn't want more, that is exhausting.
100%. And I really appreciate how you've made that discernment for yourself. So you're working only with those people who are running right alongside you as opposed to people you're having to drag. So
Absolutely.
let's go Nicole, Ray, Seth, Brandon, and hi, Bill. And we'll go Bill last. The question, guys, is why do we love seekers? Why do we love those people who sense that there's something more, like a purpose, and are actively seeking that? Nicole.
I would have to say because that was me and still is me to some degree. I looked for all of my adult life. I can remember just even being very young and looking at a lot of just personal transformational information, books and at that time like tapes and different kinds of seminars and trying to figure out I know there's more. I know there's
Mhm.
more. I know there's something that I should be doing. Um, I and people would talk about, oh, you need to find your gift, and I'm like, where do I look? Like, I don't know what my gift is. I don't know how to find my gift. So that's why I love this because it was me.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yep. Oh, that's so important to me. Using Blueprint as a mirror to identify what you knew intuitively you had already had within you, but you weren't sure exactly what it was. And the recognition that you're still seeking today. Yeah, me too. I've known my blueprint since 2006, but because it's an expression of God, as all of our blueprints are, it is infinite in nature. So we get to keep understanding it. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Let's go, Ray. Ray, just so you know, and you don't have to answer this question, but the question that we're talking about right now is why do you, Ray, as a practitioner, why do you love working with people who sense that there's something more and are actively seeking it?
It's, I want to say at this moment, it's simple for me. It's a sign that they just love life.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's that simple that they love life and that they're enjoying themselves as God also wanted us to do, um, to have fun and bring joy to others too as well. So
Mm,
yeah, it's that simple for me.
perfect. I love the simplicity. Thank you so much. Seth, Sea Captain Seth, how about you? Why do you love people who are aware of their purpose and are actively seeking it?
So my brain went to gap or gain, and being a person that has stayed in the gap space. Um, so what I love about it is really the level of bravery.
Mm.
that it takes for people that are in the gap space. Like they've never had the words, they weren't in the right community. I mean, any list of things. Um, there were external expectations. I mean, you name it. So the bravery to finally say, I don't know, but I came across this blueprint thing. I'm fascinated by the connection that I'm experiencing just watching a few videos, and I'm going to step into this. Because I think we know as practitioners from where each of us started at that commitment conversation to where we are today in that blueprint process is night and day. Like if we knew where it ended up in the very beginning, we probably wouldn't have done it because it is hard and it uproots a ton of things and redefines. So, um, yeah, I think it's just that bravery piece. It's the openness to something that's completely unknown.
Mm.
Like surrendering to the fact that I may, life is messy. I may sometimes know, but the reality is, I just have to be brave enough to keep moving. So
Mm.
uh,
So
that's kind of where my brain went.
thank you. That is so beautifully said. And as you're identifying, on the other side of blueprint, that bravery is still required because the unknown is still in front of us. And I'm going to address that. Like, how do we move forward without knowing exactly where we're headed? It's a powerful question. And I so appreciate that recognition that for you, the ideal client is someone who is bravely, boldly facing the unknown. And that's why they're coming to you because they need that resource, they need that support. So thank you. Brandon, you next. Why do you love those who seek something more?
Well, for me, when you first asked the question, I had to kind of break the sentence down a little bit. Why do I love people who want more or who are seeking more, and really kind of define what seeking more means to me?
Mm,
Um, because wanting more, seeking more I mean, that could be a lot of things. More houses, more things, more money. Um, but what it means to me is just kind of recognizing that you don't know it all
mm,
and that there's more out there than what you could have possibly experienced in your life. And you want to keep learning, keep growing. You recognize that you can keep developing. Um, that to me indicates somebody who has a growth mindset, is humble, recognizes, hey, I do know a lot. I've accomplished a lot, but it's a tiny little fraction of what's out there. And I just have I've found that people like that in my life, especially leaders that I've worked for, they tend to be the ones that you want to work for, that you want to work with, that you want to be around because it's like they help bring out the best in you. And so when I work with somebody like that,
yeah.
you know, it's like mutual learning.
Mhm.
They're bringing out the
Mm.
best in me as well.
Oh, love that. All right. So you said a couple of things that I thought were powerful, and that is what more are they seeking? And I know you in particular do a working contract, and that comes up in the very first conversation with someone. Look, if we're going to do this together, what exactly are you after? So that's a great filtering technique that you use to make sure that you're working with the right people who are seeking that which you yourself are seeking, which consequently creates a team, a partnership relationship where you're both working towards the same thing. You just happen to be a little further along, maybe on that road. You've got the bumps and bruises to prove it. But I love that recognition of what occurs with the right people as a client provider relationship. It's now a partnership. And that is so special. Thank you. Bill, last but not least, good to see you. Why do you love those who are seeking? They sense that there's something more for them to do, and they're seeking that, actively seeking that. Why do you in particular love those people?
They tend to be coachable.
Ah,
So if we're in the business of the blueprint and purpose and all the rest of it, you want someone that's motivated.
mm-hmm. Hungry. I love it. Thank you. Yeah, both you and Brandon mentioned that idea of humility, and that makes total sense. And Amy talked about this as well. If our blueprints are an expression of God, then of course there's an infinite capacity for us to learn and grow. And so humility comes along with that recognition. All right, so I myself have a talk that I'd like to share. As I mentioned a couple minutes ago, it's one in particular around this idea that Seth brought up that, yeah, pursuing our unknown absolutely requires bravery. And I want to share how the blueprint process helps you in that. And then Brandon has created a talk for us, and Bill has created a talk for us. But in between those talks, we're going to hear from everyone else as well. So, the rest of the practitioners, thank you so much for being on with us today. And please, after every talk, I'm going to open it up for sharing. So, together as a crew, we will fill this hour with awesome stuff for those humble seekers out there. So, when I think of what God has planned for us, I think of a podcast I actually was listening to this morning that we are each like an arrow on God's bow. So, if you imagine God pulling back an arrow, that is each of our blueprints. And then He lets it fly to do the good in the world that it needs to do, that each one of us needs to do. That's our power, that's our momentum. He is our source. But we often don't know exactly where that arrow is going, as an arrow wouldn't, right? An arrow just gets pulled back by the bow and goes wherever the bow shoots. So, because his ways are higher than ours and his thinking is higher than ours, we cannot necessarily intuit where we're going, where we're supposed to be. And all the practitioners on here, as well as my clients, would agree that we are often faced with choice. We come to a crossroads that isn't necessarily just two paths. It could be 10 that we could possibly pursue. And we wonder how to spend our time to be that arrow, that true arrow that flies just as God identified. So, what we do as blueprint process practitioners is we help you find your blueprint. And Nicole brought up this idea of mirroring, where each of us are trained to basically just hold up a mirror so that you see all the good that is packed into your arrow. Now, what that does for you it has a very unique feeling. Knowing what makes up your arrow, as we refer to it, your blueprint, is supremely helpful, but maybe not in the way that you might expect. When someone sets a goal for their life, they are, in a sense, arbitrarily choosing some point out in the distance, which they are going to pursue. And that's cool. But it might or might not be connected to their arrow. So they might be heading off in a direction that God actually didn't intend for them to head off, either with a project or a relationship. So, what we want to do with Blueprint is give you the backing that helps you understand exactly what your arrow is supposed to do. And then when you come to that crossroads, even if there are 10 options, you can look at your blueprint, remind yourself of everything that you have in your arrow, and then choose wisely based on what you have and what those paths show you. It's a powerful place to come from when you know what makes up your blueprint. Now you can choose more accurately who, where, when, all of the things that come up at a crossroads. I want to share something with you, if I can, that each of us in the blueprint process has, and this is something that you would receive as well if you decided to work with one of us to go through the blueprint process. This is what we call the Gorilla Tower. And the tower takes everything that's in our blueprint and actually identifies what our job description is right now. So a lot of us obviously are entrepreneurs. So we kind of create our own job description. But some of you might work for someone else, and that company then identifies your job description. Well, your job description, whether you created it or someone else created it, may or may not fit you well. And I'm sure all of you have had that experience where you were a complete misfit for the job. And it's a very, very uncomfortable feeling. And we don't want to head down those roads if at all possible. So when I say that we as practitioners provide you a framework in your blueprint that helps you make those choices when you come to a crossroads, this is what it looks like. This is a tool by which you can identify, is this job for me? Is this the relationship for me? Or is it not? And the reason why I say that is this tower is mine. This is my tower. And I see this as my job. And it's from the one being that is not only the most powerful and the most intelligent, but also knows me super, super well. He knows all the hairs, the number of hairs on my head. That's how well he knows each one of us. So who better to work for than that guy? Plus the fact that he wants the best for you because he wants you to be able to give the best. And so, because I know these 10 things, I'm able to assess at every crossroads, is this my project? Is this a project that's going to help me use these 10 things? Is this a project that will help me achieve these 10 things? Is this a relationship that appreciates and utilizes these 10 things? Am I able to really bring the brunt of my blueprint to bear on this relationship or on this project? It's an incredible tool. So as you're facing the unknown, it's not that blueprint is a crystal ball. It is not. It instead identifies your landscape, your sweet spot, so that as you're making decisions, you can choose with accuracy what's best for your blueprint and what isn't. And sometimes, as the other practitioners will acknowledge, sometimes what your blueprint chooses for you might not be what you thought. It might not even be what you want. But once you step into it, you'll realize not only is it the best for your blueprint, but it's actually the most satisfying and fulfilling thing for you. It might be intimidating and scary, but as you move forward, because you chose based on your blueprint, you will gain confidence and awareness of just how powerful your blueprint is. So the tower, again, is our way of helping you identify what's your main job each and every day, whether you're at work, at home, or at play with your family, your friends, your clients, your colleagues, your kids, doesn't matter. This is your job. And to know, to have certainty as to what that job is, helps alleviate the fear that comes when you don't know what your future holds. It's a completely different way of approaching your future with confidence. And when we talk about the power of receiving that, acknowledging it, becoming aware of it, versus trying to go out there and create it, it's a totally different skill set. And it actually, receiving instead of creating, actually moves within you in an effortless way so that you feel, just like Jesus did, that it's not you that's doing the work, that God's moving through you. And that's why when we step back and let God move through us by way of our tower and our blueprint, we feel that effortlessness and that energy and that rightness. And it's very much like God is showing us exactly where that arrow, our arrow, is meant to go, which of course is what he's doing. When he's drawing back that arrow, he's also moving the bow exactly where he wants you. And at every crossroads, you can sense that with the help of your blueprint. Guys, practitioners, do you have any questions or comments? Would you like to add anything to what I said? And then we'll move to Brandon. No? Nicole, did you have something? No. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad that I was just so genius. You guys have nothing to add. Brandon, are you ready to share with us your lovely blueprint?
Yes, I am.
Excellent.
Thanks, Tammy.
Yep.
Um, it's this idea. So what's coming up for me is receive mode versus seek mode. And I think we just so often in our day to day naturally get into this to-do list mindset of, okay, I want this outcome. And so I got to do X, Y, and Z, and I got to check that off the list today. And that's fine until something's not working or there's some uncertainty. Um, or you're involved with something where maybe there is no checklist. And I would argue that just simply because we're humans and we have unique blueprints and we have unique circumstances, we have unique families, unique relationships. I mean, that even if you're think you know what you're doing, you think you know what you want, and you think you know all the right steps to take because you read it in a book, heard it from uh, a mentor, a consultant, a guru, that even if it seems like, oh, yeah, that's perfect, it'll work for me, you have to be careful because that person isn't you. And the things I just mentioned, unique blueprint, environment, relationships, etc., that's all different, no matter how alike it seems. And so when you come up against something that's uncertain and you're like seeking, right, for this next thing to do, what's the next checklist item? How who's the next person I should cold DM to try to get to be my client or to buy something from me? That becomes, I think, exhausting. Um, and so that's why I call that seek mode. And so receive mode is something I've been trying to get into a lot more lately. And receive mode for me is just kind of stopping, listening, and just trying to become aware of what's supposed to be next, what feels natural to me. And that willingness, I guess, to go into receive mode, it could stem from a lot of different places. It could stem purely from faith. It could stem from an understanding of your blueprint and just that having that knowledge and confidence and knowing that you are enough the way that you are, you have everything that you need. And so then you're able to trust receive mode a little bit more, trusting that you're just getting into that space where God, however you like to think of God, is coming to you, working through you, and then trusting that what you hear as you're listening when you're in receive mode. And there's different ways that you would get into that, and you kind of have to figure that out for yourself. What ways that I like to get into that are just going for a run, getting outside, and while I'm running, trying not to actually not trying to think of the next problem and what to do, but just kind of being in the run, being in the moment, being present, and just listening, just noticing what I'm doing and just kind of being still and aware. And, sure enough, that's when my best ideas have come to me. When I just get that, I'll think of something will pop in there and I'm like, oh, and I feel the energy, throughout my chest, the feeling opening up, like a weight coming off, a weightlessness. And that is when I'm most energized and when I feel most connected with, you know, my surroundings and what I'm supposed to be doing and my blueprint and God. So yeah.
Thank you very much for describing not only what you do to get into receive mode, but what it feels like when you actually do receive something. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, well, because if I said that, all you have to do is go run, it would be a direct contradiction to what I believe, which is we can't copy and paste somebody else. It might work for you,
Right.
but it might not. And it's just the idea that you have to figure that out for yourself.
Yep.
And, it starts with the foundation, the belief that you are enough and going through blueprint process, uncovering that really helped me to learn that I'm enough, to learn that I have what I need, to learn to trust that I have it all, I have what I need, right? I have those resources available to me, that I don't have to go find somebody else and copy them. And in fact, it's exactly what you're not supposed to do. I say supposed to, not that I'm telling you you're not supposed to, just you realize that. You realize that, man, I'm not meant to just go copy and paste. Can you imagine if we were all just meant to copy and paste? Like when you say it like that too, it should make you, or it should, uh, it makes me feel like that's crazy to think that. But I think we all I went through that, not to speak for everybody else, but I certainly went through that where I thought that I was supposed to follow my mentor's footsteps and do exactly like they said and follow the script, follow the golden path, right? And then I realized that that golden path is a fallacy.
Because there's only one of a kind for each of us. I love that. And you're so right. It connects right with blueprint, and that it's blueprint principle number 2 is that we're each unique for a reason. And so, of course, the paths that we pursue, where our arrow is pulled, is going to look different for each of us. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious to know too, from the other practitioners, and let's go Annie, Nicole, Bill, Ray, Seth. Can you guys share? So Brandon shared that for him to get into receive mode, running works really well for him. Brandon, can you answer? I know I just told you're done, but you're not done. Do you mind answering? How did you figure that out? And by the way, practitioners, I'm going to ask the rest of you what your way of getting into receive mode is, what your method is. Brandon, can you like you said, we each have to figure it out for ourselves. So, how did you find that running is a good mechanism to get into receive mode?
I think my wife and kids joke that they can go outside. If I'm running on a beautiful day here in New England and they go outside and look at me, I'm not running, I'm skipping, you know. And so the reason that they say that is just I found that I was running not because of some like the cardio. Well, that wouldn't be entirely true. I do get cardio benefits from it, and I do like that about it. Okay. But there's other ways I could get those benefits. But when I was going on the runs outside and just kind of being outside and being in nature, beautiful, I have beautiful scenery all around me. And so I think that plays a part in why running helps me get into this mode. But essentially, I would come home and just tell my wife and kids, like, man, I was like almost crying on my run because I just felt just this energy, this weightlessness, and it's just like this, yeah, like this is what it's about. This is what I'm supposed to feel like. With no agenda with it. And it was like, why I want to be in that mode more. And then I started to kind of look for that feeling. So I'm glad you pointed that out, right? It's the feeling. You, Once you recognize that feeling, you're like, how can I receive that in different moments? Not just, okay, I've got to drop what I'm doing and go run 4 miles. Because even for me who loves that, that's not realistic.
Right.
How can I get into a receive mode more frequently? Well, that requires that you understand what it feels like for you. And so that's that feeling I got. And so then I like wanted that more. And now I try to get that through, and that's kind of it's funny that I said it like that, right? It's like I'm seeking that receive mode. So then that's kind of a paradox. But um mindfulness helps me. Walking outside now helps me as well, not just running. And sometimes just pausing and just trying like blocking things out and just being here, listening, being still, noticing my breath just while I'm like when I go pause and I'm listening to other practitioners talk. So I don't know if I answered your question directly, but those are the thoughts that came up for me.
No, I appreciate it's beautiful. I loved everything that you said. And there's behind what you're talking about, there's this awareness that, yeah, we could actually feel that 24/7 because we are one with this source. We are one. And so what you're feeling is his presence, which I got to point out something else that you did. And then Annie will go to you is you came to that moment. You go on that run or you're in your mindfulness practice without an agenda.
Mhm.
And I think that is key. So thank you. Yes, you can mute yourself now and connect. Cool. Annie, how about you? How do you find yourself in that receive mode?
Sure. I have still been trying to figure out new ways to get
Mm,
into receive mode because, the concept of shower days is something that I brought up several weeks ago. And I agree with that I've always encouraged any business owner that I work with to go and do creative things to bring out the receiving on their own.
mhm.
And so for me, now I've been working on my own. What is that creative path for me to open up the receiving? And so recently, I truly have my house looks like some weird sort of science experiment because I've got puzzles in one room and I have coloring things in another room and I have, artistic things in another room and I have, weird forms of cardio in another room. Just, really trying to rework those neural pathways to open up the creative process because while I do feel that I receive the best when I'm alone, like Brandon said, when he's running, when I'm in my own head, which for me is in the shower. Um, what I've learned is that if I don't do something creative prior to that, I'm still thinking about the to-do list. But if I can do something creative, if I can reset my brain, new research is showing that creativity actually flips anxiety on its head. It
Mm.
actually immediately stops anxiety. And so, one of the things that I've been working on is just adding in more creative endeavors so that I can then go be in my own head and do the things without worrying about the to-do list.
Love it. Thank you so much. So there's
Sure.
two very, very different ways of getting into receive mode. Creative activities versus an athletic activity. And this just exemplifies blueprint, how we're each uniquely designed to not only give value, but to receive. So let's go Nicole, Bill, Ray, Seth. Nicole, how about you? How do you get into receive mode?
A couple different ways. I, like Brandon, I like to be outside. And so being outside alone, it really is better for me. Or maybe not alone, but doing work and kind of being alone in that work. So I like to be outside doing things outside. And that really um, helps. But I love what Brandon said about not having an agenda because I don't typically go out saying, okay, I'm going to go out and do this and hope that I get into receive mode. It just happens. It just happens. And it's a letting down of my guard of not thinking, like Annie said, about the to-do list and all the things that I have going on in my life. It's just
Yes.
letting all of that go and just being open to nature, really. The other thing that really helps me, and it's in my blueprint, and you and I talk about this all the time, is music. And music will, and it can be, I love just a huge variety of music. So one day it may be, really twangy kind of music. One day it may be hard rock. It may be worship music. Like there's all different things. But that will put me into receive mode almost immediately,
Mm.
typically. So
Thank you,
those are
dear.
my ways. Um, I also like what Annie said about shower days because water for me would be the running, but I don't have the opportunity other than taking a shower to be in the water much. So
Right now.
yeah.
I have a question for you. You talked
Okay.
in the garden one, you were talking about letting things go, the to-do list. How do you, when you're in that moment, you're gardening and you're wanting to be in receive mode, how do you let things go, like the to-do list?
For me, if I'm outside working in the garden in particular, I think it's really just being grateful for the ability to do that. Just feeling that gratitude that I can be there working the ground and how fortunate I am to live where I am, where we can grow plants. We don't live in a desert or an ice place. And just the gratitude for the quiet outside, the sun, the clouds, the birds, whatever it is. There isn't any season, I don't think, where we can't feel gratitude for how beautiful nature is. It's just different in different seasons.
Love that. Total reflection and blueprint. Thank you. Let's go. Bill, Ray, Seth. Hey, Bill, how do you get into receive mode?
Oh man, I don't know. It just depends. I guess the thing you got to kind of remember is that you got to get out of your own way first. So look at how you're in your own way and sit down.
Mm,
And I mean, I really get I get the whole gratefulness anxiety thing because gratefulness is part of a water process, which you can't have gratefulness and anxiety at the same time. It won't happen. The second you start getting grateful, your anxieties are going to move to somewhere else. And I like the idea of working outside in particular because, again, usually if I'm feeling anxious, I look at the mode I was in and get out of that mode or change state, as many coaches often talk about. And so, but receptiveness in general is really a very yin process. I mean, that's and if you have a blockage and you're not and the two are not talking to each other, then you've got to figure out a way to at least acknowledge acknowledge the blockage, bless it, and move on.
thank you. Can I ask, why is it important to not only identify what's holding you back or blocking you, but then bless it? Why is that important?
Well, it's there for a reason. It's telling you something.
Mm.
If you're experiencing a blockage, it's because you're not paying attention.
Mm,
So I think it's a reason to be thankful.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
Let's go, Ray, Seth, and then Bill, we're going to come right back to you so you can share us your good on receiving. Ray, how about you? How do you get best into your receive mode?
Well, like a lot of others that have spoken already, it's walking. For me, it's trail riding on a bike. Certainly meditation, um, which is probably the most frequent thing that I do, on a daily basis. And also getting rid of all the nonsense in my life, like
Hmm.
all the stuff that's just like clutter.
Hmm.
And really focusing on um, what it is I want to create in my life. So it's again, I guess I want to say it's simple. Um, Walking, biking, meditation, reading many times.
Hmm.
Um, Really being captured by the book or whatever it is that I'm reading, to be sucked into it like a movie almost. That's a really good uh, venue to do it as well. Um, and yeah, and working on simplifying what's really important and
Hmm.
most of um, multiply our minds, right? We're bouncing all over the place. So simplifying and saying, what is it that I really enjoy?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. I loved your word your phrase to be captured by, and I think at the time you're talking about a book, and I can see how a lot of the things you were mentioning can capture you. And as
Mm,
Bill was talking about, if your mind is captured by something that's creative or spiritual, it can't be captured by anxiety or fear. So, what a beautiful, beautiful way to get into that space. Thank you.
mm, mhm.
Seth, how about you? How do you receive?
So I'm going to limit it to three things, but being the last guy, I've got 100 ideas. Um, I'm thinking of, in terms of music, Take Courage by Hillsong is one of those things that I put on that goes to places I can't even describe. Like the dynamics of that song and the words together, plus the way it's performed, completely blows me away.
Mhm.
So the second thing, and again, Brandon and I did not rehearse. I didn't talk about topic. As soon as he started talking, I wrote down Psalm 23.
Mm.
And it goes back to the Syrian shepherd for me. Um, so in my head, and you'll hear me so often say, I think, I think, I think, I think.
Mm.
And my brain is like a hornet's nest. So trying to get clear to get to a place to receive
Mm.
is very hard for me. So I want to kind of share the this concept that for me, things that are so big that I can no longer think my way through are hugely important for me.
Mm.
So this discovery that I've come to specifically through Psalm 23 and the song of the Syrian shepherd that I mentioned, which is a pretty short read that really describes the dynamics of Psalm 23. But just in the beginning, through three verses, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Why that's cool is if I'm a sheep, I've got all the grass that I can possibly eat, and green pastures are normally in better land, and I'm not really subject to danger because having God as my shepherd uh, pretty much keeps me safe. He leads me beside quiet waters, and he refreshes my soul. The quiet waters piece, hugely important because sheep naturally are skittish.
Mhm.
So the quiet waters allow them to actually relax and sleep and all that stuff. So for me, as I'm getting ready to go to sleep and the day has been, I think, I think, I think, I think, I think, and from event to event to event to event, I've literally had to say, the troubles of today are over.
Mm.
The day is finished. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Please let me be present under your care next to the quiet waters so that I can finally hear.
Mm.
Has been the most powerful tool that I've used to focus and turn everything off.
And of course it is. You're using God to get closer to him, to become aware of him. That is beautifully said, better than any other human activity or lack thereof that we might incorporate, getting his help. Because of course he wants us to be with him, mentally with him, and consumed by him, or as Ray said, captured by him. So who better to reach out to? Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's beautiful. Sir Bill, we would love to hear from you a little bit more on receive.
On
What you,
receive, huh? On
yep,
receive.
yeah, what you got?
Every time someone brings that up, it reminds me of when I was a kid, before we had cable TV, and we had a normal TV set with the rabbit ears,
Mm-hmm.
and you take tinfoil and you wrap it around the rabbit ear or a coat hanger, and you kind of move it around, or you get somebody to stand in the room like this, and until the reception came in. So I guess yeah, we've covered a lot of the same stuff that I think I would just be repeating some things, but I'll do it anyway.
Thank you.
As we all sit in a circle and suppose the secret sits in the middle and knows.
Say that again, please.
We all sit in a circle and suppose the secret sits in the middle and knows.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that gets to that gets again to the I guess I can cheat a little bit, but my process, this happened yesterday. I was talking to a gentleman working on a different project, and I'm sitting there trying to get a bead on things, and I realize I can't get a bead on anything. Everything's kind of moving around at the same time, and I just realized that, well, my job really is just to leave it better than I found it.
Mhm.
I mean, that's one of my bullhorn things, right?
I sure do.
So when all else fails, and a lot of times I have to ask myself the question, all right, so what have I found
Mhm.
as it relates to my particular state in the moment,
Right.
and how can I leave it better?
Mm. Beautiful.
Where do I go with that? So it could be any number of the things we've already discussed. I do know that for the most part, the reception can only work if the receiver is steady and ready to receive. So you've got to move yourself into that mode. And to do that, you have to remove the obstacles. And to remove the obstacles, you have to first identify what they are and what's causing the problem. And a lot of times I know meditation or mindfulness is a big plus, but sometimes you got to get out of that, and I have to talk to people. A lot of times just talking to someone else
Oh.
can be completely unrelated. Just pick up a phone and give somebody a call.
Hmm.
Maybe somebody you haven't talked to in a while.
Why do you feel like that disrupts that cycle?
Because we tend to obsess over ourself
Mm.
ad nauseum. And the only way to break away from it is to involve somebody else. So this is a team sport. Life is a team sport. You just can't do it all on your own. I mean, I'm somewhat of a I guess I'm not a very outward type of person, so consequentially, I tend my gravity tends to move towards quiet, go on a walk, work in the garden, clean something out, whatever, which is good. All those things change state, but then you realize you need the energy of someone else.
Mm.
You might get it from prayer. That can work too. But look, there's lots of people in my life that I'm very grateful for, because when I get stuck like that, I can just call somebody. I don't have to tell them why I'm calling. It's not even important to do that. The thing is, you break the state of focusing on yourself. You want to get out of depression. The best way I know to do it is to do something for
Mm.
somebody else. And depression is the thing that causes anxiety. It causes disruption. It's a blockage. You bless it, and then you move on. You found it, and then you move on. And every day's like that. Another very similar quote from a guy who quoted the previous thing, and I always like this one the best, because this really, we tend to live everywhere but the present,
Mm.
and the past is a canceled check. The future's a promissory note. The only thing you got is today, and that's cash.
Love that.
So, uh, generally speaking, as you notice any type of thing that might be interfering with your reception, 9 times out of 10, it's something that's trying to tell you something.
Mm.
And if you can just at least give it the gratitude and blessing that it needs, because and maybe it's not going to reveal specifically what the issue is, but I think in most cases, if you at least acknowledge it, you're going to know that, okay, that's what's causing the problem, and then you've got a direction to go in.
Hmm. How would you help someone who says to you, okay, I want to identify what's blocking me, how I'm getting in my own way. But how do I know what those things are? How would you help someone investigate or discover what their blocks are?
Well, usually it manifests in the body somewhere.
Mm,
So it could be in their stomach, it could be in their head, it could be in the point of their throat, uh, down lower. I want to know where they're feeling it
mm,
first. So, okay, when you get this, when this thing manifests, where does it show up?
hmm. And then they can watch for what triggers that.
Well, you've got a pretty good idea once that happens. Sometimes that in and of itself will bring about the reason.
Hmm. Very cool. Thank you. I very much appreciate your awareness. It's come up a couple times as you've spoken today, this idea of blockages and obstacles. And of course, it makes sense that we've got to identify those. But I love how if you're blessing something, you're not going to feel shame about it. And that's what I hear most when people recognize their own faulty thought patterns. They tend to feel shame, responsibility, and shame. But that's not at all what you are presenting. So I appreciate that alternate view.
Well, there's no shame.
Tell us more.
There is no shame. If you're feeling shame, that's a blockage
I love that. Love that.
because what's there to be shameful about? You're a human being.
Hmm.
You're going to make mistakes.
I love that. Like, so shame, like I've heard before that guilt or shame isn't from our Heavenly Father. It isn't from our Creator. And that's basically what you're saying. Any shame or guilt, it doesn't have legs. It doesn't have divine legs. So it cannot stand unless we give it our attention. Lovely. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. We've got a couple more minutes. Are there any additional shares or questions that you would like to pose to people who might listen to this regarding receiving, getting into the state of receptivity of what our natural, inherent quality is to this world?
I would like to say something. Brandon had, oh gosh, now I totally went away from my brain as I started to talk. Um, Give me a minute. I don't
No
remember.
problem.
It was something Brandon said, and then it just went away. So give me a minute.
I understand. No problem. Take your time. Anybody else? Yes, Ray. Hi, Ray.
I think at least I'll just speak for myself. Early in life, we seem to just be putting outward in putting ourselves outward, and and I think at some point in everybody's life, we realize that maybe there's a better way of just always putting out, out, out. And it feels like you're on a hamster wheel or whatever. And this is more of a process of inward.
Mm.
And that's really where all the blessings are, all the gratitude, all the good stuff that we've talked about. It's all inward.
That's lovely. Yeah,
Yeah.
go on.
No, that's really all I was gonna say.
I appreciate the awareness of that paradigm shift because you're absolutely right. We come out of high school, we've spent 18 years doing
Mm.
as others are telling us to do. We come out of high school and we're like, now what? And in order to get a good job, in order to attract a spouse, we're very, very focused on giving, giving, giving. And all that focus could actually tweak us out of our natural. So Blueprint is about, wait a minute, let's start with what you come naturally equipped to do.
Mm.
And which, like you're saying, it requires the inward look, not the outward look. Nobody out there can tell you what your uniqueness is. That's between you and God and hopefully a blueprint process practitioner to unveil that inventory of tools that you've been given to pursue your purpose with and achieve your purpose with. So I very much appreciate the awareness of that shift. We cannot give until we go inward and see what is already there.
Mm.
And then it's unfolding. We're unfolding instead of accruing, as if the accrual-based concept, which we often hear about in school, is this comes from this idea that we're blank slates and we have nothing inherent, which I think is what causes us to go seek other people's approval, feedback, jobs, etc. So your paradigm shift of study what's within and then give from that. Yes, that's job number one. Thank you.
Mm.
Nicole, did you remember?
I did.
Tell
So
us.
when Brandon was talking about receiving, he at one point said, "This is how I'm supposed to feel," and it reminded me about like a pardon this, but it's like somebody who is taking some sort of drug to feel a high, right? Like they want that state of mind again, and it's a similar kind of thing that you want that receive mode. But when he talked about this is how it's supposed to feel, this is how I'm supposed to feel, it just made me think about all the years that I was looking for answers. That's what I was looking for. Like this doesn't really feel quite right. Like it's not right. It's not there. It's not there. It's not there. And when you start feeling like you're supposed to feel, it feels so natural that you don't. There's no question that it's for you. It feels natural. And then if you have the blueprint to go back it up, to be able to go back and go, oh yeah, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's in these spots in my blueprint, then it gives you the confidence of going, yeah, this isn't something that I'm just thinking I feel. This is real.
Oh, I love that awareness. Thank you. That if it feels natural, it's for you. If it doesn't, it's not for you. And that's okay. What's for you is out there. I also love the awareness of you can go back to your blueprint and back it up. And then what we know is that every blueprint item, and there are about 100 blueprint items, they're transferable. So if they work, for example, like music and water, Nicole was talking about work for her to get into that state of receive mode, and gardening. Now she can look at the blueprint, find out where those things are coming from, and those things in her blueprint, now she can transfer them to job, to relationship, etc. So super cool awareness of that 360-degree helpfulness of blueprint items. Thank you, dear. Anything else for the greater good? All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much, practitioners, for hanging out with us today, as well as people watching and listening to this. Please feel free to share this with someone that you know is aching to get into that place of peace and calm that is the receive mode that we've been talking about. Our next webinar, Purpose Pursuer webinar, we don't know yet what it's going to be about, but of course it's going to be awesome. So it will be the fourth Wednesday in March, which is also the 26th, from noon to 1 Pacific time at this same Zoom link. You can reach out to any of us on our website, blueprintprocess.com, and each one of us are super happy to chat with you for free. We don't need to be paid right up front. We would love for you to get the chance to determine which one of us is right for you to help you on this incredible journey towards your purpose. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.